Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome along to not in the wilds of Suffolk today. I'm in my house preparing for an interview with a gentleman called Thomas Dewolfhound, who hasn't joined me as yet, but he shouldn't be too far away, I would hope. Otherwise, it's going to be the shortest live stream in the world. Just waiting for him to get in touch with me. Thomas is over in China, so we're just trying to get all that sorted. But in the meantime, welcome one and all. I'm so happy that everyone's joining me today. And but while we're waiting for Thomas to join us, we'll just talk about some of the events that have happened in the past 24 hours, really. We've got I've been talking about events kicking off all over the world for a while now, and it seems that it looks like things are ramping up in the Middle East, over in Israel, with Iran responding to what Israel did, was bombing some targets in Damascus. So there are some events that are kicking off in the world, and that leads into a lot of other things. So we'll have a brief discussion on that while we're waiting for Thomas. Hopefully he'll be joining us soon. And we'll be talking NLP and leadership and a bunch of other subjects relating to where he is in China and what he's doing, and digital money and all sorts of different things we're going to be talking about. So thank you for joining me. So what we've seen with these events in the last sort of week, we've seen the gold and silver prices are going up. There's been a lot of discussion about that from people in the know. Obviously, I'm not one of those people. I'm just reporting on things that are happening in the world. And they're saying that this is obviously priced into the market. What's happening in the world with these? Oh, hang on a minute. We've got some comments here. Vince has joined me. Morning, Vince. David, welcome. So what we're seeing is that the gold price and silver price is going up, and people that are in the know are saying that is related to upcoming events, pricing in events of things that are happening in the world, in the Middle East and over in Ukraine and what have you, that the gold price is pricing that in world events taking place, like wars and things like that. So as the gold price is nearing sort of $3,000 an ounce, I mean, an ounce of gold, the gold coin, a little tiny gold coin worth $3,000. I mean, it's a crazy amount of money. So I think we can all agree, silver's gone up 30% in the last couple of weeks, went from $22 to $28 an ounce at the moment. So we're seeing an escalation of not only tensions in the world, but we're also seeing an escalation of asset prices, real assets like gold and silver, also increasing against the dollar, which means is it that the prices of things going up, or is it just the value of the money is going down against those actual assets, which is what we've been talking about for some time now. So we're with these kind of events taking place, we're going to see all sorts of weird stuff taking place, like asset values going up massively against the value of the dollar, which is what China's hoping for. Now, if you've been following along, not just here, but along the ride, what do we got here? Gold is acting strangely due to the dollar value, but is also decoupled from the typical trends with prior compared to other assets. Absolutely, Vince. I couldn't agree with you more. Now, I watched George Gammon doing a live stream last night over on Twitter. He did a Spaces over on Twitter, on X, is whatever we're calling it nowadays. And he was talking about the macro events, macro things that are playing into asset prices rising and weird events taking place, wars and things like that happening. So as we see these things happen, we're going to see more and more strange occurrences happen to do with money and finances, and more countries being taken out of the SWIFT system. So I know we've spoken about this before, but as we've got a little bit of time to kill, hopefully Thomas will be showing up soon. We've had these nations that SWIFT is run by essentially the biggest banks in the world. Usually most of them are American, and they get to decide who is in their system. So if you don't play how they want you to play, then you don't get to play in the American system, or the SWIFT system as they like to call it. Now what's happened is the BRICS nations, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, have created a separate, what they call a trading bloc, much like the European Union, EU, which was originally set up as a trading bloc after the Second World War, to help countries that were fighting against each other during the war to be able to trade with each other, like Italy and France and Germany and all these countries in Europe, to trade with each other after the Second World War. So this system of the EU was set up, well, that was what it was originally sold as. Obviously, it's not. It's a separate governance model. But what we're seeing now is the BRICS nations are joining together to fight against what is the Western system of running the world and their values. So the Western values of transgender and gay everything, and the rainbow flag, and all the things that the Western media, Western politicians are promoting heavily, is being pushed back against by countries like in the BRICS nations, so Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, that hold different values to their citizenry. Now, you can argue backwards and forwards whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing that that they're doing what they're doing, but as it stands, the world is in a transition mode, going from a singular dictatorship, if you will. Well, let's not call it a dictatorship, but it is, because if you don't go along with what that dictates of that governance system are, then you'll be removed from it. So we're seeing a move away from Western hegemony to the east. So we're having, like I say, the BRICS nations are now, there's 42 other nations that have joined. Saudi Arabia, Iran is joining the BRICS nations, Turkey. There's a bunch of nations that are joining the BRICS nations in moving forward with their alternate financial system, which means they're not being governed by Western morality or immorality, or however we view what is going on in the world. So one of the discussions I wanted to have with Thomas, should show up soon. I think maybe it's just a time. There's a problem with the timing, but he shouldn't be too far away. I hope I'll send him over a message. Thomas is living in China, and we've all heard negative stories about China. Of course we have. Now, as someone who's been living there for quite some time, I wanted to get Thomas's perspective on life in China, because he's been living there for a long, long time. So obviously there is a lot of positives to his experience to living in China. So we've all heard stories from our perspective, from where we are in the world. I'm here in the UK. I've got other people joining us. I know Vince is in the US, and we've got people from all over the world who are going to be watching this stream. And I wanted people to have a perspective of someone who's living actually in the country, their perspective on world events and how it is living in a system where it is fully digital money, and how the Chinese system works and how things work over there. So I'm intrigued to get that insight from Thomas when he does join us, and be able to ask some questions about that, but also going off into different tangents of the things that Thomas is involved in actively day in, day out, which is NLP, executive training, all those kind of things. He's a wonderful guy, and I really can't wait to get this started. But it's as usual, things never work the way that you want them to. I'll just do a quick check here. No, not there yet. He shouldn't be far away. So what else have you seen on the radar, people? I mean, what have we got here? They're successfully testing a couple of weeks ago announced. Yeah, absolutely. Swift CBDC. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that with the CBDCs, I mean, as I say, there's digital money, then there's CBDCs, and there's digital assets, cryptos and things like that. They're all different. So CBDCs are central bank digital currency. And central bank digital currencies, as talked about by central banks, are programmable money. So the problem that I have with central bank digital currency is that we have an issue with the central banks get to tell you how much you can hold and how they can program the money. So that, let's just say you have 20,000 pounds or dollars, wherever you are in the world, and they say that's the limit of the digital money that you can hold in their CBDC currency. Then it's programmable that they can say, okay, that will just disappear that money from your account now, and that, I think we can all agree, isn't fair. You should have access to your money. You should be able to spend it how you like. You should be able to spend it where you like and not be monitored 24/7, which we are anyway. But there's a privacy aspect to everything that we're doing. Now, people say to me, oh, blockchain and is 100%. Good morning. Morning, Robert, over at the Comic Book G-Spot. Welcome, my good man. We're still waiting on my guest coming. So if you've just joined me, so we're just waiting, and I'm just riffing until he gets here. But with digital money and with cryptos, now I've been told, and I've been in this for 6 years. I don't know everything, of course I don't, but I've been in this for 6 years, and I've done a lot of experimentation, a lot of reading, a lot of understanding of how the market works and what it's all about. And we were told early on that Bitcoin and things like that were private transactions. They're not, because it's a public blockchain. It's all public. And the governments of the world have known how to decrypt and how to understand who and where is buying. I mean, if you know anything about the Silk Road website that was shut down, there was a guy, I can't think what his name is now. There was a guy that was running Silk Road who was arrested and jailed because on the Silk Road you can buy drugs, you can buy a hitman, you can buy all sorts of things. It was on the dark web, obviously, and they confiscated all the Bitcoin from when they raided the Silk Road, the website. And as far as this whole privacy transactions on blockchain is concerned, yeah, okay, you don't know the person who's doing it, but the wallet address, you can trace the wallet address, and the wallet address is tracked to your IP. Now you can say, well, I'm using an IP blocker, but if you think those are secure, then I'm afraid to tell you that they're not. Companies are big government organizations. Yes, they have, Vince, and there's been a lot of talk about sell pressure on Bitcoin and other digital assets from that confiscation of Silk Road, that they're selling those onto the market. The US government is one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin in the world. Really intriguing arguments as to, before a couple of years ago, China was the biggest miner of Bitcoin in the world. They had some of the biggest mines of Bitcoin. If you don't understand Bitcoin mining, it's computer machines all linked together. Mining, actually, it's the easiest way to understand it is it's computer algorithms that these computers have to solve in order to mine the blocks of Bitcoin. Now, at the moment, and for another 2 weeks, I think there's 900 Bitcoin are mined a day. It's not mined, but it's created a day through this what they call the hash rate. And the hash, what the computers are doing is solving these algorithms to confirm the transactions on the Bitcoin network. Now, Bitcoin isn't the only model, the only blockchain that uses this model of creating their currency, or the currency, if you want to call it a currency. But there's multiple. That's called a proof of work algorithm. Now, the proof of work means you have to work to solve these algorithmic puzzles to confirm the transactions on the blockchain. Okay. Now, that's hugely energy intensive when we're talking about in the world of there's too much electricity being used. So it's when we're going into what they're calling the green world, and electricity usage, and we're talking about where we're getting our electricity from. The Bitcoin miners would say, well, we're using things like hydroelectric, or we're using the off times or the down times, like of nuclear power stations overnight when they're not producing electricity for homes. We're using that electricity that's the surplus energy to mining Bitcoin. But it's still a massive amount of electricity that's used to create a financial product. And people would still say the argument is, well, cash takes a lot of money and a lot of electricity to print, but most of the cash nowadays is not actual paper money, the toilet paper, which is what it is. It's actually electronic, and which is different from crypto. It's such a before you really get into this space and try and understand it, it's just gobbledygook, and most of it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it really doesn't. When you first get into it, it's like you have all these terms and things that people throw around. That's basic once you get into it. But before you get that basis of understanding of what it's all about, it doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. And you try and understand these complex algorithms and how everything works. I mean, I don't understand the code that this is all built on. Of course I don't. I'm not that kind of person. I just know how to use the technology, how to use it to my advantage, and what I see when I'm looking at it. So let's have a look at a couple of comments here. Vince, I accidentally acquired a Prince Charles silver coin. Well, you know what? So did I, Vince. I purchase periodically silver and gold coins, and when King Charles came into power, that guy that's been linked to some of the most notorious pedophiles in the world, being Jimmy Savile and his brother linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Actually, if anyone hasn't seen it, Thomas has just got in touch with me. If anybody hasn't seen it, there's a new movie out with Billy Piper. It's a British film called, now I can't even remember the name of it. Scoop. And it's about Jeffrey Epstein. So I'm just going to respond to Thomas. Here is 10 a.m. Sorry, I'm just sending a message over to Thomas. I do apologize for this. Damn it. Okay. Done. Okay, sorry about that. So I accidentally received a Prince King Charles coin now as well. But I think it could be a collector's item because his reign is going to be very, very short. Probably the shortest reign in history of monarchy. I think that I don't know what the new terminology is called. When the Queen was dying, or when the Queen died, it was called London Bridge has fallen. So I don't know what the new one is, but I think we're going to be seeing that with King Charles in the not too distant future. I would think by the end of the year. Big call, but I've never got the dates right, so excuse that. So yeah, I'm with you, Vince. Hold on to it. It could be a collector's item because there'll be, I think it's going to be a very short reign. Okay, what did you say, Robert, here? 4-day working period now, taking out 10,000 bank accounts out of your own account. Just ridiculous. I agree. So when we're talking bank accounts and banking in general, when you deposit your money into a bank, it's not yours anymore. It's theirs. They're creating a security over your money. It's a security. But at any time, if the bank goes bust, if you have a look into your terms and conditions of your bank account, I think you'll find something called bail-ins. Now, last time we had a banking crisis, which was 2008, 2009, the banks had to go and beg the governments for money for bailouts. And they didn't want to do that again. The government didn't want them to do that again because it looks bad, because they'd just been bailed out and then they paid their executives billions in bonuses. But as soon as you deposit your money, this is something everyone should know. As soon as you deposit your money in their bank, it becomes theirs. Then they can go and lend it out to other people to buy homes or cars or whatever. Or what they've generally been doing, which is a big issue, is they've been buying government bonds. Now, the issue is, ordinarily that wouldn't be a problem, but since 2008, there's been so much money printed into the system, and people have deposited that extra cash into the accounts, into bank accounts. Banks always get the first crack at the cash when it comes out of the printing press, of course. So when they've deposited their funds into the accounts that is owned by the bank, then those banks have gone and bought government bonds, and those government bonds are underwater because if you remember back in those days, they dropped the interest rate to zero. So you had a very, very low yield on those bonds over 30 years. So what's happened now since this is all kicked off and the interest rates have gone up, and let's not kid ourselves, the interest rates are going to have to go higher. They will, and we can all. He's just got back. Yeah, cool. He's just printing himself up. I like it. So what we're going to be seeing with bank failure, and we are going to see bank failures, and it's going to be a consolidation of a lot of banks into the bigger banks. The bigger banks are going to gobble up the smaller banks. That when we have these banking crises, if you have cash in the bank, it's not yours. Be aware of it. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. So as long as you have that mindset in place, if you don't hold it, you don't own it, whether it be cash, whether it be gold, whether it be silver, it doesn't really matter. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. So bear that in mind. They keep your money if they may. Yeah, oopsie, yeah. Yeah, Jake is on them. I'm broke. Yeah, I'm broke as well, Vince. I mean, look, when I say I'm broke, I don't have cash. I don't. There's no point. There's no point. I was speaking to someone just the other day about, he said, I've got a bunch of money he's saving up for a deposit for a home. And I said, where is your money? And he said, in the bank. And I'm like, are you getting any interest on it? And he said, no. And I was like, well, look, there's plenty of places right now you can get 5.5% interest on your account. There's platforms that I use. If I've got cash deposited on that platform, I'm getting 5.5% for doing nothing. I don't get that at the bank, even though the bank would lend out that money at, my mortgage in Australia is currently 9%. 9% interest. Okay. How much interest do I get on having my bank account in Australia? 0%. So the idea behind banks is when they're lending out the money, they should give a proportion of that back to the people who are investing in the bank, who are putting their money in that the bank can then lend out. We're supposed to get a percentage of the interest that they're charging on mortgages or loans or whatever. We don't. The bank's keeping it and they're super profitable. Well, they're not profitable, but they're posting these massive, massive profits, and then they pay themselves massive bonuses from the money that should be paid to you. So we're living in a giant scam. And Thomas is just joining in the background now, so I'll get him on in just a moment. Let's do a quick intro first. Thomas Dewolfhound, absolute legend, friend of mine for many, many years, executive trainer, NLP, leadership. This man's done it all, and I'm going to let him do the talking, and we shall bring him in. Thomas?
Hi, Chris. Stay here in Japan. How'd you put you in? Long time no see.
Indeed. I haven't seen you since, 2001, 2002? Something like that? Somewhere around there?
Could be. It's been a long time for sure. So last time when I visited London, we managed to meet up, yeah?
Yes, indeed. Well, it's great to have... Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on. I don't know what they did there, but sorry. No, it was me. I pressed the wrong button. I do apologize.
No problem.
So what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about a bunch of different stuff. How much time have you got before we get started?
As much as you want.
I love that. All right, so let's try and keep it around an hour, because we're going to have people joining us, and we don't want to take it too long. And I know you're a busy man, so So what I wanted to do before we get started on all the things, all the awesome subjects we're going to talk about, NLP, leadership, all these kind of things that you're involved in every day. I want to just, you're based in China at the moment. Now, we as outsiders, we hear a lot of stories about China. We hear a lot of negative stuff, but you've been living there for a long, long time. And I want to get your lived experience of living in China. You've lived there for a long time. So tell us a little bit about your lived experience, where you live, how it is in the area that you are, what life's like, and then we'll sort of take a few questions from the audience about what that is, and then we'll continue on to what we're going to do next. So please just tell us a little bit about your lived experience.
So I've been in Hong Kong for 8 years, and then China for the last 4 years. Right. Well, of course, I lived in Asia before. I lived in Japan for 4 years as well. So spent a considerable amount of time here in Asia. So let me just start by highlighting what I think are some of the great things that China has to offer.
For sure.
It's a very safe environment. Yeah. My wife, she can park the car 15 minutes walk from here at 1 o'clock in the morning. I never need to worry that anything's going to happen to her. Yeah.
Great. And we can't all say that, can we?
Unfortunately not, right? So security, the feeling of feeling safe, or whether it's a wife or kids, and I don't see any crime anywhere, right? I mean, it's even the general society people apply on the road. You don't see people getting into road rages. I'm sure there is. There's a 1.4 billion people live here, but even then, you don't see people honking their horn or driving aggressively. It tends to be a fairly harmonious type of environment. Great. So safety is as number one. The next one is convenience. The convenience of being able to do stuff. And of course, when you're new to the place, you notice things more. For example, one day, my wife needed to send some stuff to our daughter who is away at boarding school. And so she packed up the stuff, and I said, okay, well, so we're going to the post office? What? No. And she just picks up a phone. She goes, yeah. Oh, so they'll come and pick it up? Yeah.
Great.
So, so, so then I said, well, we need to get some boxing material. Huh? No. Then on the morning when we're leaving to go out and she's got the stuff ready, she takes it and she just puts it outside the door. She's gonna leave it there. Yeah.
No, you wouldn't dream about doing that in London. It'd be gone in about 10 seconds.
No. So if I was living in Hong Kong and I wanted to take send some stuff, I'd have to go out, buy the box, put it in the box, tell it, tape it up, take it down to the post office, stand in the line, wait, yeah, then mark it all off and do all that. So it's very convenient that everything is done very quickly. You know, if she wants to buy something, she orders on her phone. You know, sometimes it may be an hour, 2 hours, and it shows up, right? Not everything, but a lot of stuff like that.
Is this WeChat that you're talking about?
WeChat is the main thing. It's not just a platform for social connection. People do everything. They pay bills, they book, flights. Everything is pretty much done on WeChat. So
Right.
it's a really cool. And from a business point of view, we do a lot of business on there as well in terms of there's all sorts of, it's been built out for make things very convenient. Now, the reason, so we have convenience. If I want to travel, it's also very easy, right? We have a high-speed rail. China has more high-speed rail than the entire world put together. Yeah. And with our high-speed rail, we're talking having the ability to be able to go. So if I wanted to go to Hong Kong, if I take a conventional train, it would take about 9-10 hours to get there, right?
Right.
But if I go take a half-hour cab ride from here and go to Hunan, it takes me 50 minutes.
50 minutes.
50 minutes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, amazing. It's where I live out in the country. You know, I don't live in London anymore. I live out in the country. And the place where I live, the nearest sort of bigger city is about 45 minutes to an hour away from where I am. That's called Ipswich. If I go down to London, if I go on a train, it's about 2.5, 3 hours from where I am. You know, there's no high-speed rail links in the UK, as you well know. Because the government doesn't have any interest in wanting to. Well, they've spent a bunch of money on doing it, but it never gets to fruition because there's so much corruption within this country and around the world. I mean, let's face it. But in this country especially, money that's supposed to be going to works and things like that that's going to benefit the people doesn't get spent on that. It goes into politicians' pockets and their friends. So, yeah.
So we have safety, security. When I lived in London, my car was broken into, my apartment was broken, and every single friend almost that I knew had people had their stuff stolen or their houses broken into. Remember our friends Francesca? Remember they had all their stuff stolen probably more than once, right?
Yeah.
So that's another kind of relief that whatever happens, right? So if I'm if I go out and I'm on my e-bike and I get off and I leave my phone in the thing, it's going to be there when I come back, right?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So it's very safe, and it's not because the government, the police will punish people if they catch them.
Sure.
People just don't do that. People just have respect. So if you were to lose something, fall off, nobody's going to pick it up and steal it. They'll probably leave it there. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the same across Asia, though, isn't it? Because I've heard reports about the same thing in Japan, where people routinely fall asleep in the street. Businessmen are working long hours, and they'll fall asleep in the street. No one robs them. They've got their wallets, they've got their phones, and they've got their watches on. No one robs them. No one steals anything. But I think it's more of an Asian thing, isn't it?
Within reason, every single Asian country has slightly different thing. You will find pickpockets in Thailand. They're a little bit careful and putting out there. But some cultures like Japan and China, look, of course, if you come to China, don't be completely foolish and use your normal thing. But the chances of you getting robbed are a lot less. All right. So we have safety, security, we have convenience of travel, high-speed rail. It's very easy to book a flight. I fly frequently to the North Shenyang and Beijing. It's very convenient and get to the airport in relatively short space of time. The infrastructure is really well built. The roads are well maintained. The the place is clean.
Unlike London.
There's no graffiti. There's no graffiti. There's no garbage everywhere. Even in the local small communities, the DNA of Chinese people is that they maintain and keep places clean, right? So that's it. All right. Then there's the friendliness of the people, right?
Yeah, I've been to China a couple of times. I love how friendly people are, and of course Asia as well. I mean, when I was in Thailand, I had people that had nothing, like street vendors who have nothing, invite me to their place to come and have dinner with their family, and they have nothing, but they give of themselves to people who are not from there. I mean, I found it amazing when I was there.
Yeah. So since I've been here, I've made a lot of friends. I play basketball. The guys have really welcomed me. They kind of refer to me as a big brother. You know, and so it's a very friendly kind of place, right? People are nice and friendly. You don't see a lot of drunken people falling all over the street either, right? It's not that kind of place. All right. So friendliness.
Oops, something's happened there to the. I've lost your sound there, Thomas. Lost your sound. Can people in the chat hear the sound? Talk again, Thomas. No, lost your sound. I think mine's working okay. Yeah. Okay, well, something's happened to Thomas there. We should have him back in just a minute, I hope. But yes, let's have a look at some of the comments here. Yeah, thanks, Vince and David. He's just logged out. I think he's just going to log back in again. Yes, so Vince, yes, neuro-linguistic programming. Thomas is that's his department, and we're going to be talking about that today. But I'll just Thomas is back on again. So
all right.
I can hear you, Thomas. I don't know what happened there.
All right. Where were we?
Friendly, yep, of course.
Yeah. All right. So, what do we want in the West? We want a job, we want a car, we want a house, we want safety, we want security, we want to feel part of the community and all of that, right?
Sure.
And so we see capitalism as providing all that. But here, it's very, very hard to distinguish between what capitalist society and what we have here. For example, I live in a gated community.
For sure.
Yeah, there's security there, right? There are the people that live here all drive BMWs, Lexus, you know, all the high range Mercedes cars, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, if you were just to change the way people look, you wouldn't know whether you're in, you know, the best part of the United States or anywhere else, right? So from that point of view, it's hard to distinguish. Another thing is, things are cheap here.
Yeah.
The cost of living is great. When I lived in Hong Kong was in a bit of an exception because it's one of the most expensive cities in the world, right?
Sure.
So I was paying the equivalent of about 2,200 euros a month for a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And here I get it for about 550 euros. Right?
Wow.
But here I have a 4-bedroom apartment, 2 bathrooms. And
makes sense, doesn't it?
And it's big as well, right? Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Small things that you notice as well is that if I go and I'm driving around and I come to junctions, you'll see that there's kind of covers where people are waiting to cross the street.
Right.
They're protected from the rain and the sun. So, you know, the concept that the Japanese government or the Chinese government don't care about people, that's not what I'm saying, right? It seems like they're doing everything to make society really good.
But this is the thing, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about this as well, because as I say, we on the outside, we're all being propagandized to believe in enemies outside of ourselves. You know what I mean? So we're taught to see everyone else as an enemy, because I've seen this. It's a military tactic, and it's also a tactic in workplaces as well, which is we're going to get to with some of the stuff that you're going to talk about as well.
Yeah.
Where if you have a common enemy, then it helps people come together as a unit. So governments use that method of programming. And oh, look, Audrey, my wife's just joined. Hey, darling. We see this method of using a common enemy to bind people under a banner of, oh, okay, we're working together against that common enemy, whether it be, you know, Russia or Iran or whoever it is the common enemy today. You know, and it changes all the time, because as that common enemy erodes, or that whole premise of that enemy falls apart, it just makes our governments and the people who are trying to persuade us to believe in an idealism that they have, which is, you know, world government and all this kind of nonsense, that, you know, that we're being segregated into these small little pockets of people who are fighting against each other, divide and conquer. You know, it's the oldest trick in the book, you know? Yeah. So, okay, so we've been through, you feel safe, secure there. You've got your wife there. You've got a wonderful life. You've got the cost of living is relatively low, safety, security, all the things that we all dream about. Yeah. You have.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So the last thing I want to touch on as well, when it comes to what your lived experience there, I've been dealing with digital money for 6 years now. I've been involved in cryptos and, you know, all that kind of background thing, because that's the direction we're all moving. Whether we like it or not, it's happening. Yeah. You know? Yeah. You've been living in this. China is a digital society. I mean, it's one of the most complex, organized societies in the world, because you've got over 1 billion people living there. And it's all digital, much like India has gone digital as well. Right. Yeah. So it's a digital economy. How do you find that digital economy? And because you're not a young man anymore, you're a bit older than me, I think. You know, you're young at heart. You're young at heart, and you're only as old as you feel inside, right? It's mental. So adapting to that kind of life, where you're coming from a society where it's all cash and, you know, all that kind of jazz, moving into a digital economy, how did you find that transition, and how do you find that on a day-to-day basis working with that digital transactions?
So you know, of course, my whole life is about adapting, right? This is the 6th country I've lived in, right? And every society is a little bit different in some way. So from that point of view, it wasn't a problem. I adapted very quickly, and I'm a really keen enthusiastic about using technology. So that's no problem at all. It just makes everything very convenient as far as I'm concerned. Again, you know, I don't have to carry money.
Yeah, because then it can be robbed. I mean, you know.
No need to carry money. Not only that, you know, everybody has a WeChat or Alipay. So even the smallest of street vendors, and this has been around for a long time. This has been more than 10 years that in China you could buy stuff from a local vendor, guy selling whatever small off the street type stuff, you could buy straight away from them, right? So very convenient. So China has another major advantage. It has 600 million, maybe more than 600 million cameras.
Sure.
Now, some people would say that, oh my God, the Big Brother effect. But at an economic level, it means they're collecting a huge amount of data. And AI, its power is built on data.
Of course.
So therefore, their future in terms of their ability to be able to have economic prosperity is going to be a major advantage to them in terms of being able to collect data, use it effectively, right? Yeah. So Elon Musk was asked about China, and he said that he believes that China is going to be 2 to 3 times bigger than the United States in a few years' time. And so he said, why? It's because China, the sheer number of smart, highly intelligent, and motivated people in China is much more than in America, right? And on top of that, he said the energy that the Chinese people have. Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm finding as well, you know. So there are 2 factors that I think are significant in why China will continue to rise and be a power. Yeah.
Sure. Well, this is the thing. I think, you know, change for a lot of people is very difficult, you know, and I've done videos before where I've talked about changing, adapting, and overcoming things that come to you. And I think
Yeah.
as we transition from the systems that we've been used to our entire lives into new systems and into a constantly evolving landscape that we're moving through, people are afraid of that change. And obviously we've got an older population here in the UK and from other places around the world where people might watch this. You know, we're like in Australia, we've got it's mostly a younger population. But the older population is more geared towards holding on to what they know and what they understand, which is cash, because it's private, you know, and, you know, we are moving into a different kind of society. And it is about changing, adapting, and overcoming. And you know a lot about that because you've had to do that moving through all these different countries that you've lived in, changing you know, how your thought process is and how, like, if before you went to China, did you have any you know, thoughts about what am I walking into here, or did you just go, well, okay, let's go and see what happens and see what life is before, you know, how did that thought process come about?
Yeah, my attitude's there. You know, I'm always interested and curious about going somewhere new and different. But it's not easy. I mean, it does take time to adjust and learn how things work, and it can be frustrating as well, right?
For sure.
Really, I almost had to start everywhere from scratch, right? You know, build relationships, get to know the culture, the food, and all that. But so the main reason people don't like change is, well, there's two. One is the fear of the unknown,
of course,
and the other, it requires effort.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
and effort and understanding, and this is one of the other things that I've been harping on about for a long time. I've had this channel now for 4 years or something, and you know, I've been harping on, and a lot of my audience are older people. You know, the old, strangely older ladies. You know, sort of in the more 60s, 60-year-old range. You know, older, 60 and older, and I find that strange because, you know, who I am and what I'm about and the way I swear and curse. I get it, you know. But the thing is that we've got to, the things that scare us are the things that we should confront, because those are the things that are holding us back, right? I mean, this is your area of expertise when we're talking about things like, well, let's start on talk about NLP. So just for those people that have never come into contact with NLP before, just briefly discuss what NLP is, and then we'll go into the next part of that is how people can utilize that idea and that technology, that understanding, to their advantage.
Okay, so NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Program. It was created by two people, Richard Bandler and John Grinder. And they did this by studying what some of the best therapists in California at the time were doing, Milton Erickson, Virginia Satir, and so on. So they would observe what they were doing, and then they were able to create a way of modeling that. So, for example, when they were studying Milton Erickson, they noticed that he had the ability to build rapport with somebody by sort of mirroring and matching the other person's posture and stuff like that. It was just a basic thing. Right. But then they also started to dig deeper and sort of realized that when somebody was able to handle a situation or deal with a problem, they were doing things mentally that could be copied and duplicated by somebody else. For example, fear of spiders, for example. They developed a technique for teach somebody within 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes maximum, on how to overcome that fear. Whereas if you were to send them off to therapy, it might take weeks and months sometimes to get people to overcome it using traditional methods. So it had a major impact on people doing therapy. A lot of people used it for improving relationships and sales.
Sure.
For some people, it was seen as the solution to everything. It's not. It's a useful set of tools for overcoming some significant problems as well. You need more than NLP to be able to adapt to change and be able to deal with it as well.
For sure.
So
what are some of the tools of NLP? I mean, when people are approaching this kind of subjects, I mean, where do you start, and what kind of tools can you use, and then what can you expect to see from using NLP as part of your daily routine of integrating that into your life?
Okay, so you can use it for short-term quick fixes of certain type of problems. For example, as I said, overcoming fears. If you have any phobias, you can definitely use NLP. You can use it to uh, change a bad experience that you've had
Right.
by, again, by running the process backwards from the way it happened and changing so in other words, when something happens to us, when something emotional happens to us, we actually create a memory of that and we store it in our brain.
Yeah, so strong memories are linked to strong emotions.
Right? And the more we keep thinking about that bad experience, the more we deepen it and keep it.
Right. Okay. Yep.
So one technique in NLP is where you take out that memory and you distort it so you can never get back to the feeling that you had before. It's the equivalent of if you play a record, your vinyl record, you play a record before and it reminds you of your childhood or growing up as a teenager. But if you take that record and you warp it, the song you could not get it. And that's a kind of NLP kind of technique, right? There's a multitude of them there. And then for anybody who wants to study NLP, you have NLP, you have practitioner, master practitioner. Its uses are in sales, therapy, can be used in relationships as well. So I would just see it as a tool. What I would like to talk about though is for people being able to adapt to change, right?
For sure.
The first thing is humans never do anything unless there's something in it for them.
Yeah. Or whether they're forced to.
Yeah, even if you're forced to, as soon as you're forced, you go back to doing whatever you want to do before, right?
Course, yeah, of course.
But if people can see that there's something in it for them, they will do it. So, whatever you want from another person, you have to realize that they want something as well.
Of course.
If you give them what they want, there's a good chance you'll get what you want.
For sure. Well, I mean, it's a similar in when you do sales. I mean, I've been involved in sales before, and with sales, you're trying to link the product that you have with a desire or a want of the person who you're talking with.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
So it's using that thing. You're trying to link what you have with the person that you're talking with. Is that right?
All right.
Yep.
Yes. So, so with regard to change, right? So people have got to be able to see what's in it for them if they do change.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't matter what age you are, the consequences of not changing, there's a negative side of not changing, which means you will have problems. If you live in a digital society, you won't be able to function. Somebody who refuses to use technology in China probably wouldn't be able to function in the society here.
Yeah. Well, there's a lady I follow on Twitter, a British miss, a girl called Penny, and she's lived extensively throughout Asia. But when she went to China, the issue she had there was it took her about 4 hours to get a telephone, because obviously you have to have a telephone, but in order to get a telephone you have to have an address, but without there's all these sort of steps that you have to go through to get everything set up to live in that technological society, and it was frustrating for her. But then she's since said, the change has been difficult to change, because obviously coming from a completely different society into that society, but then now that she says the same thing. Once you've integrated into it, it's simple and it's understandable, and it's everyone can do it. But it is like you say, it's that change that's difficult. Yeah.
China has 1.4 billion people. Do you know how many foreigners are here?
I dread to think. How many?
Have a guess.
I don't know, maybe 200,000, maybe a couple of million at the max, I would say.
There's about 800,000. Now that's a very, very small percentage. I mean, if you think, I don't know how many foreigners are in the UK.
A lot. I mean, it's mostly foreigners, isn't it? They want to have this integrated society. And this is the thing I rally against. I mean, I've been called racist and xenophobic and all these kind of names, because look, for me, if I'm going to go somewhere, let's just say I want to go to Turkey. I want to go to Turkey because of the culture in Turkey. If I'm going to go to China, I want to go to China for the culture in China.
Right.
If I want to go to Japan, I want to go to the culture of Japan. You know,
Yeah.
and here in the UK, what are people coming for? Because if you go to London, you would never know that's a British city. Never in a million years would you know that. You wouldn't, because they've got this mixed culture of all these people from all over the world coming together. And obviously it doesn't always gel, because you've got all these different cultures that are trying to mix together with different viewpoints of how they see the world. So does that really work? I mean, you know, I think it's a good argument. Look, I'm a foreigner. I live in this country, you know, and I'm happy that, you know, that I'm allowed to, and I have the privilege of living here. I love living here. You know, if the government keeps on doing what they're doing, I'm not going to live here anymore. Let's face it. I mean, they're just preposterous. They're ridiculous. They're thieving, criminal scumbags. They are. There's no other way to say it. They're thieving, criminal scumbags that want us all to die in a war or some other way. They want to get rid of us because they want to run the world their way. And I don't want to agree with that. So I'll probably end up coming to live with you in China. So, you know, it is. But yeah, let's continue on with your thought. I mean, you know, it is it's intriguing to hear a different viewpoint based in somewhere that we all see as so foreign and so different. To hear that, you know, and obviously you're a Westerner going to live there. I mean, it's an intriguing argument that you're making, that maybe we should embrace change and once we've made that change, it can actually benefit us, is what you're saying. Is that right?
Yes, I think the consequences of people not changing are very, very serious, right? That they will not be able to adapt. And how old are your kids now?
32, 14, and 12.
All right. They, of all people, have really got to embrace change, right?
Of course, yeah.
Because of, you know, there's a thing that says that in the next 20 years, we'll experience 200,000 years of change in 20 years.
Yes.
So it's not going to be linear anymore. It's going to be exponential. And you can see realistically how this will happen. All of the jobs that currently exist, a lot of them will change very, very quickly. You know, so anybody who's currently employed has got to watch out that whatever they're doing right now will no longer be relevant. For you to be relevant, you have to be able to add value before people will be able to pay you and you can make a decent living. So you have to think, how can I actually add value, right? And jobs that are logic based are no longer going to be something of value, because AI, computer based driven systems will do all of that, right? So people have really got to stay ahead of the curve with regard to technology and how they can adapt and change. And it presents problems, but also presents opportunity. But only, again, if your mindset is towards looking to embrace and look for opportunities. If all your energy is being used to complain and moan about something, your brain's not going to work in a creative, innovative way to look for opportunities. So your mindset towards the future is going to determine whether you're going to find life difficult or you're going to thrive in this kind of world, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so just while we're on that subject, David's asking a question. Any books on the subject Thomas would recommend, or, you know, any direction, like websites or anything that you can recommend to people where they can go to seek out information that's going to help them to be able to change, adapt, and overcome to this new life that we're living in? And what before we get to that, I just want to add in one more thing with this exponential growth. You know, Vince did a show about this, as a friend of mine who's in the chat as well at the moment. He did a show a little while ago, and I spoke to him about something called Moore's Law, which is the speed of computer chips doubles every year. So when you talk about exponential growth, and we're talking about AI and all these kind of computer-based technology that we're moving into, if we factor in Moore's Law, like you say, it just expands on that idea, that concept of that huge exponential change in our society and what we're all going to contribute to it. So it's that understanding. So what can you suggest? I mean, what direction you could suggest? Well, I've got a bunch of books downstairs, Mindset, The Divine Matrix by Greg Braden, and it's an understanding of yourself before anything else of the world around you, because once you understand yourself, you can change how you see the world and how what value you're bringing. So what direction can you point people to help them to integrate stuff into their life?
I don't have a strong book recommendation on AI as such. What I do have is strong recommendations to be able to adapt to change. Number one is meditation.
Okay.
Meditation reduces stress and increases your longevity. You don't need to sleep as much. You have impulse control. There's a whole range of benefits to meditation, and you only need to meditate for as little as 13 minutes a day. If you meditate, your concentration and your focus will improve. Right? So there's health benefits, there's relationship benefits, there's, I believe, economic benefits, because if you're able to focus and concentrate in a world which is very, very distracting, lots of things that can take you away from what you want to focus on, right?
Sure.
The second thing is, and this will be very close to your own heart, is exercise.
Indeed, yes. Yes. And your heart as well. I mean, you as you say, you play basketball a couple of hours every week, which is key. Key to your mental well-being and your physical, obviously.
Yeah. So if you have those two core things and you're healthy and you have the right mindset, then from there you can build on other things. The next one is adopt a learning habit.
Sorry, you broke up there a little bit. What were you saying?
So, adopt a learning habit.
Great. Yep.
Learn. You must be a continuous learner.
For sure.
Whatever it is, you have to learn and keep learning, and then you'll be able to understand the world a bit better. So that's learning anything and all that can be of value to you. And finally, if you want to live a long and happy life, is relationships.
For sure.
The people who have the best network, feel the most supported, are the people with the most valued or quality type of relationships, right? Those four things you can work on every day for 1 hour.
Yeah.
You can get fit. If you spend 15 minutes a day doing high intensity exercise, sure, kettlebells, just floor walk and like that. 13 minutes meditation, 15 minutes learning something new, 15 minutes at least reaching out and contacting people. All of my friends are all over the world, right? Yeah. But I maintain relationships by spending time emailing them, connecting with them, letting them know how I go on, right? So those alone, doesn't matter what goes on around our society, war, pandemics, etc. If you have those, you will have some chance of dealing with all of the crazy stuff that's going to get thrown at you, and it will. No matter how much you have, no matter what's going on in your economy, unfortunately, life tends to hit us pretty hard at times, right? Yes, so that's a great way to actually be able to have a view of the world that gives you stability, a sense of calm, a sense of purpose as well. If you don't have it, if you're not learning, if you're not looking after your health, if you're not being able to have a peaceful inner being, and you're not looking after a relationship, you will.
Yeah, of course. No, I agree with you. I mean, wonderful words. I mean, I think anybody that watches this is going to take a lot away from it. Now, what I've tried to do with my channel from day one is to try and help inform people. I'm not looking to sell anything. I'm not asking for anything. There's no donations. I'm not monetizing the channel. This isn't about that. You know what I mean? I don't have a news channel where I'm doing it every day. I do this when I can and speak to interesting people like yourself and to try and pass on information, because as you say, it is the relationships we build with people that is going to be the thing that helps us to thrive and prosper through periods of uncertainty and doubt and fear and all that worry and things that we're going through. So I mean, you also let's change direction a little bit, because I know it's sort of similar to what we talked about with NLP, but you're also a hypnosis practitioner.
Yes,
hypnosis and psychotherapy and that kind of thing. So Talk us through that. And what's the mechanism? I mean, is it a similar mechanism with hypnosis with NLP? Is it the same sort of area of the brain that it works on, or how does that work? Just walk us through that.
It's different. All right. So I'm a qualified hypnotherapist, and I use a form of hypnosis which is based on Milton Erickson. Milton Erickson was an American, and his work changed how people viewed hypnosis. Before his work, a lot of people thought it was just some sort of gimmicky, quackery type of thing. But Erickson proved to be a bit of a genius when it comes to using hypnosis. Hypnosis is not a cure-all for everything. Doesn't fix all problems. The kind of hypnosis I do is called cooperation. So in other words, I'm working with somebody else to create a space where we are both in trance. I'm in a trance, and the other person's in a trance. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I use hypnosis with some of my clients that I coach. You can use self-hypnosis to improve the quality of your life. Here's the tip for everybody: self-hypnosis. And when you go to bed every night, if you just spend the last 5 minutes thinking about what you want from life, yeah, you can create a form of self-hypnosis. When we go to sleep, we go from theta into delta, and as we lie down for the last 5 minutes, a lot of people will think about the problems that they have in life. They'll think about the argument they had with their wife or husband, and they think about dealing next day with their boss or their bad health or whatever, right?
For sure.
That's one way not to get a good night's sleep. But not only that, but you're literally programming yourself to have exactly the same experience the next day.
Exactly.
So instead, as your head hits the pillow, start thinking about what you do want the next day. You want to wake up and you want to see your wife and she's smiling at you and that you have a great relationship, or when you show up at work, you're getting a lot of work done. You're literally programming yourself to have that experience. You can't do this one time and expect change.
Of course.
And when you're doing this, you must do it with feeling, because we are driven by both logic and feeling. So if we have a strong feeling about something, that also changes the way the brain works. So a number of years ago, they did an experiment where they took a group of basketball players on the court and they had them take some free throws. And then they took down all the statistics about which ones they missed and which ones they got. And then they split the group randomly in half. They left half on the court to continue to play, practice the free throws. And the other group they put in a room and asked them to imagine taking the perfect free throw. Imagine the weight of the ball, hearing the ball bounce, feeling the body going through the motion and taking the shot. After 3 hours, they brought both groups back on the court, had them take some more free throws. Which group improved the most?
Well, I'd say it's probably the people who focused on taking the perfect free throw rather than the ones who practiced all the time.
It was actually the group on the court.
Well, really?
Because they had the ball, but the group in the room showed a significant improvement without ever touching the ball. And from that, they discovered the brain doesn't know the difference between, once you've got some experience, the brain doesn't know the difference between practicing something and imagining doing something. As a result of that, that means that if you want to learn and improve on something, the way to do it, you could say that's visualization, but it's a way of rewiring the brain as well. They did it a more detailed one of this, where they took a group of people, had them do brain scans to see what the connection in their brains, and then they taught them how to play the piano.
Right.
Yeah. Then they, again, for a number of weeks, I can't remember exactly the number of weeks, but they had one group continue to play the piano every day, and the other group just imagining playing those notes.
Yeah.
When they brought them back, both groups improved, but they also had scientific proof that the people who imagined it, their brains had changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, whatever you want to become good at, whatever kind of life you want, you can use the power of that last 5 minutes to change how you deal with things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you come into
I've
contact with
lost
the
your
law?
audio for some reason.
Have you? Can you hear me now? Let me just check it. Audio.
Let me just maybe.
It seems to be working my end. Yeah, yeah. Seems to be working my end. Thomas has just dipped out again. We're having a couple of connection issues. We'll get him back in and see if it's working now. Let's see.
All right, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So
it's in the every so often.
Yeah,
the Matrix. The Matrix.
It is the Matrix. Look at my background. So have you come into contact with something called the law of attraction?
Yes.
Yes.
With it, yeah.
It's very similar to what you're saying with the law of attraction, which is that you attract that which you think about most. You know, energy flows where attention goes. You know.
Yeah. I'm slightly negative on the concept in that some people think, all I need to do is create a space in my closet and I'll find the right kind of husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's intention and then action.
Yeah, I mean, you really, if you're a 4'2" ugly guy who has little or no personality, I don't care what you put in the closet or how much law of attraction, you're not gonna find a nice 6 foot, glamorous woman. It's just not gonna happen, right?
Of course. Yeah. There's a guy called Stephen Peters, and he did a book a few years ago called The Chimp Paradox. And Stephen Peters was the head psychological coach for the UK Olympic team. And what he talks about in his book is very much what you're talking about here with his visualization, be able to see, because as you say, most people are focused on what they don't want, and the universe or your brain doesn't know the difference between, if you're constantly saying, if you're constantly thinking bills, then what are you going to see most of? You're not going to see money coming in. You're going to see the same thing. And it's very much where if all your attention is on the things that you don't want, it's like I've used this analogy many times. If you're looking to buy a dog, let's say a Dalmatian, okay?
Yeah.
When you've made that decision, you want to buy a Dalmatian, you're going to see Dalmatians everywhere. Not because there's more Dalmatians, but because your brain is now noticing the thing that you're focused your energy on, which is Dalmatians. So your brain picks up on noticing Dalmatians where you wouldn't have seen them before. And when I talk about these things, and I've talked about it quite a lot, is if you're constantly focusing on the things that you don't want, like you say, just before you go to bed, had another argument, work shit, my boss is a wanker, all these kind of things, what are you going to have? You're going to have more of the same things. Whereas if you're focusing on, okay, what do I really want? And most people don't know what they want. That, I think, is the biggest issue. So can you talk to that? Or?
Yeah. So listen, I would encourage people to see it as literally wiring your brain. So you mentioned bills, but it's not just the bills. The reason people have those bills is because possibly they're not earning enough money at work, because they're not getting a promotion, because they're argumentative with their co-workers or boss, right? Or they have a husband who is spending too much money, and that's a problem, and they don't know how to address it. So what's really happening is you're wiring your brain to continue to have the arguments and the difficulties, or the self-doubt. I wish I was smarter. I wish I was better. I'm so nobody likes me. You're literally wiring your brain. It's from a neuroscience point of view, you're literally wiring your brain to create a bad life for yourself, right?
Of course.
So that's what you're, just like the basketball player is wiring his brain to actually get over the piano they can play. Literally, the same thing that people will experience in life. And for if your audience is older, in their 60s and so on, same thing goes for health. For sure. If you look in the mirror and you think, I'm getting older and older and older, you will get older and older, because your mind-body connection is literally telling your cells to age and so on, right? So again, it's staying in good health. You have to kind of send to your body. Obviously, you have to do all the other things, but you will be a far healthier if you see yourself as being somebody helping, my body can heal, it can change. Dr. Joe Dispenza, you're familiar with him?
So who?
Dr. Joe Dispenza. Sounds like
I've heard the name. I've heard the name before.
Sounds like Dr. Soap Dispenser.
No, actually, I think there was a movie that he did. There was a movie by this woman called Rhonda Byrne called The Secret, which was about the law of attraction. And I'm pretty sure that Joe was in that movie.
Yeah. So he conducts seminars and helping people improve their health, and a lot of this stuff I mentioned, which is again using scientific-based methods of breathing and so on to improve their health and literally rewiring. He has a book out that's worth reading as well. So just on the subject of hypnosis, nearly all sports teams and professionals use hypnosis to improve their performance as well. Yeah,
of course.
It's a really good shortcut in some ways to have a dramatic improvement in performance. If you're working with a hypnotherapist, you got to find the right one. Like mechanics or dentists, they're all different, right? Some are better than others, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
So with hypnosis, I mean, we hear a lot about hypnosis, and there's a lady I want to talk to about what she does as well. But do you deal with like past life regression, any kind of thing like that to do with hypnosis? Is not your area of expertise, or
no? I don't.
Do you see value in it though?
I'm not so sure. I mean, there's some interesting books on the subject about people having past life regression and be able to relate stuff. It's interesting. But again, you know, I'm focused on the more practical stuff that people can use on a day-to-day basis. You know, when I'm, you know, I coach people who work in the financially, mainly because that's a lot of my background, and so for them is being able to improve their performance as well. It's a critical thing. Yeah.
So this is the other thing. I mean, you're coaching and working with some of the most financially literate and successful people in the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you as who you are and the skills that you're bringing to the table, why would they come to you when they've already got because to get to that level of success, you have to have this belief in yourself that is paramount to everything. Because if you don't have belief in yourself, you can't achieve. You can't. You know, and how is it that these people who are, you know, where they are, how is it they come to find you, and what do you bring to the table that is valuable to them that they would pay you for your service?
All right. So I have a combination of both training and coaching. The two are very different, right?
Sure.
And I think it was in 1896. It was the first time that Harvard played Yale in American rules football. Right. Yeah. And over the next 10 years, Harvard won like 80% of the games.
Right.
Because Harvard had a coach.
Right. Okay.
And guess what happened next? Yale hired a coach.
Right.
Yale hired a coach, right? So we know that coaching works. Mike Tyson had Gus D'Amato, right? Coaches bring out the best in people.
Right.
Gus D'Amato couldn't beat anybody up. He was a whole guy, right? So the coaches don't have to be able to do what the people they coach do. And there are all sorts of different coaches. Did you know that there are people who specialize in coaching people who play professional poker?
Want you to control their emotions that come out and their tells.
They can. So it's even more interesting. When people are playing poker, they have some self-sabotaging things about them, right?
Yeah, of course. We all do.
Yeah. They often have triggers that cause them to start losing money, right?
Right.
So there are people who just coach people from who are professional poker players. One uses actually a combination of coaching and hypnosis. Yeah. I was surprised to find that you have coaches, you have sleep coaches.
Right.
Just go to bed. Just close your eyes.
But no, this is the thing I find strange. I don't sleep a lot anyway. I sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours a day max.
Same here.
And people say to me all the time, how can you do that? And I'm like, well, it's what I've always done, and I've trained myself to the point where I actually thrive on less sleep. If I get more, I feel tired. I feel really lethargic if I sleep too much.
Yeah.
So, I find it really, like, when I go to bed at night, I work a lot. I mean, I work a lot. I mean, I'm working 14, 15 hours a day constantly. But when I go to bed at night time, when I lay down, I'm out.
Right.
And when I
how much exercise are you getting these days?
Not as much as I'd like. Not as much as I'd like. Before, when I was in London, I'd ride my bike an hour to work and an hour home, which was, I was doing triathlons back then as well.
Yeah.
I don't get as much as I want to because of my schedule, and I keep a busy schedule because I'm trying to retire this year from my job. I'm trying to retire.
Okay.
So my entire ethic at the moment is earn as much as I can, put that money into investments, have the money working for me so I don't have to work for it. So that's my whole plan at the moment. Obviously, I'm trying to balance home life. I've got children, obviously, young children. Work balance. I've got to go back to Australia probably next month to sort out some stuff. I've got problems at home. My mum and my dad aren't really healthy at the moment. So, but I'm trying to balance everything, and it is very, very difficult to find that balance. Each day I try and do some push-ups and some planks. I walk most places where I can. I live in a little small country town, so I walk nearly everywhere I go, or I'm on my bike. But not as much as I'd like. As much as if I had the option, I'd be exercising for at least an hour a day.
Right.
At least.
So people who exercise need less sleep than people who don't. So we know that you're physically active for all of the time that you work, correct? You're standing, you're moving around, right?
Physically and mentally, because it is both. It's very physical and mental.
So one time they did one of these interesting studies as well, where they took they gathered a group of hotel maids and said, we want to make sure that all of you are staying healthy. So they took all the blood pressure, heart rate, et cetera, yeah, and they took all that. And then they split this group randomly in half, and they had one control group go and do all the things you normally do, but they explained to the other group. They said, did you know that your work is equivalent to 2 or 3 exercises every day? Really? Yeah, because you're shaking out the sheets, you're pulling the blankets off, you're vacuuming, you're scrubbing, you're doing all this, right?
Yeah. And
they had them come back after again, maybe 3 months' time, and those that were told lost weight, their blood pressure was better, their heart rate was better, because they kind of a form of hypnosis in a way. They believe that, right? So the more active you are, the less sleep you need. Same to me. I'm the same as you are. I'll do, 5 hours is typical for me, yeah. But I do nap during the daytime as well when I can for 20 minutes as well. Meditation also reduces down the amount of hours you need to sleep as well.
Right.
Have you, or do you ever use kettlebells at all?
No, I know of them, but I don't have any exercise equipment in the house. My wife, she goes to the gym a couple of times a week. She goes and swims once a week or twice a week when she can. It is, it's one of those things that, like, I find it so hard to get out and go to a gym. I don't have time. So what I do
Don't go to the gym. Don't go to the gym.
Yeah.
It takes time and it's expensive. All you need is buy one kettlebell, and you need about 7 to 10 minutes, and you will get aerobic fitness, you'll get flexibility, you'll build muscle, and you'll make your bones stronger.
Yeah. So this might be a rude question, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But how old are you, Thomas? Because you're a fit, good-looking man. So how old are you?
I just turned 66 in March.
66, ladies and gentlemen. This is a 66-year-old man who plays basketball with much younger guys every week for a couple of hours. And, mental acuity, you've got it all. I mean, my wife is a carer. She works in aged care, and she's caring for people who are your age or younger who are completely ruined, like completely. Their health, their mental faculties, nothing about their life is working properly. And here you are as a 66-year-old guy, you're not only learning every day, you're involved in technology, you're coaching and training people, you've got an active lifestyle, and all the things that we've talked about today, the NLP and the hypnosis, the meditation, exercise, your sleep, everything about the way that you're living your life is geared towards you having a happy, healthy, mentally stimulating existence that will bring you and will help you to adapt and change and overcome to the world that we're moving into and the world that we're living in. Yeah, because you're not sitting on the sidelines just waiting for things to happen. You're actually on the field changing things yourself. Not only in the outside, but on the inside as well.
I haven't been sick for maybe 10 years. And when I talk about sick, not even a cold.
Right.
Nothing, absolutely nothing at all, right? So from staying mentally active, I have played 42,000 games of chess in the last 3 years.
Wow. Well, chess has never been my game. I mean, I lose drastically every time, but I play checkers with the kids because it's a much simpler game. Let's face it. And for me, I'm a simple kind of guy. But
not true. Not true.
But it is those kind of things that keep your mind active. And for me, it is being involved in, like you say, learning. For me to go from zero, where I poo-pooed anything to do with crypto, back in 2013 when I first heard about it, I was like, this is garbage. It's pointless. It's nonsense. Until it got to 2017, and I went, okay, I've got to learn about this. And I threw myself into it, and I'm still doing it every single day. Whether it's NFTs, which is non-fungible tokens, or whether it's crypto, or it's all the linkages in the back end, how that all works, or setting up wallets and all those kind of things. That's my way of being mentally active and being involved in the changing world that we're living in. So let's there's a couple of comments here. Let me go back to the comment section here. Robert asks, any good reads on NLP or any direction you could send people to help them to learn about NLP or that kind of concept? Where should they start? Where should they start with that journey?
There's a ton of good books on NLP, but I would suggest taking an NLP course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what's currently running in the UK, but the best ones come from people who have been directly working with Bandler. It's been a while since then, but I did several of them and found them useful, right? So there are resources as well that you can use to learn some of the basics as well. So take a course would be one good way where you actually learn how to use those particular techniques. I would say, first of all, is you have to understand what is your aim, what do you want NLP to do for you, right? That would be a thing. For me, I wanted to learn NLP because I wanted to transition into becoming a therapist, and it seemed like a good place to start as well. Plus, I thought it would help me improve. I'm always looking for ways to improve my performance, and so that was another reason for me doing that. So the benefit of anybody learning even the basics of NLP will be able to help other people.
Absolutely.
Okay. Numerous times when somebody came to me and they were upset about something, and within 5 minutes I could have them laughing at that experience. Overcoming in 5 minutes, that felt very good as well, right? So same thing with phobias or stuff like that. That's also would be a real benefit.
Great. Now we've got another question here. Vince is a keen chess player. He plays online all the time. So he's asked two questions. What is your chess rating?
Chess rating is something like 800. I play in leagues, and I'm at on chess.com. There's a different levels, and I'm at the top level legend. And every week you have you get assigned to 50 people in a league.
Right.
And typically I'm in, for one time I was like number one for like 5 weeks in a row. Every week I would reach the number one level, right? Wow. So it depends. And so the rules are you can play as many games as you want, No, you can sit down and play all day, but when you play, the more you win, the stronger the competition you're paired with.
Right. Right.
And the more you play, of course, it's tiring. So are you going to be effective so you can lose, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I haven't been so much focused on my rating more than in the league, always trying to get up into the top 2 or 3, 1, 2 or 3 positions, right? That's kind of my aim. Chess is very addictive.
if you win, it's like golf.
It's very addictive. You know? It's very addictive because it produces dopamine.
Right.
Right. And the dopamine, we all get dopamine from all sorts of sources, right? So dopamine is then, dopamine comes from drugs, alcohol, sex, and accomplishments, right? So, and also social media type gives you a dopamine hit, right, as well. So the problem is that it can be very addictive. So it can take up a lot of your time. I have to be careful. And I started to do my work and not wanted to just play chess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get a dopamine hit from interacting with people. I mean, I am very much a people person. I love interacting with people, and it fills me with energy when I get to interact with people. I do. I love it. And I'll talk to random people on the street. I love it. All my neighbors, when I'm out the front and I'm working in my garden, I'm just, maybe watering my plants and things. I'll talk to the neighbors. There's an old lady who lives down the street. I always talk to her. And it fills me with energy because, you have that interaction and you're feeding off each other's energies. I love that, So, so another question you had, what is your favorite chess opening?
Favorite chess opening? I have a number. The Caracan would be my favorite opening.
Okay, what does that move?
It's kind of difficult to take favorite showing you a board. But Caracan, anybody who knows it, right? But it's it's one of my favorite, right?
Okay. So, I mean, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, and this is why we have computers and AI as beating people at chess, because chess is a memory game. At the end of the day, it's a memory game. If you were to go back and study all the grandmasters of chess, right, and see, okay, for the pieces that are on the board on both sides, if I make this move and the opponent makes that move, and you can remember all those moves through to the finish based on the different moves that you've made against the different moves that they've made, then you'll have an outcome.
It's a
memory game, right?
I'm going to give you a different term.
Okay.
It's pattern recognition.
Pattern recognition, right? Okay.
And it's the same thing that makes successful basketball players and tennis players and also therapists. If you play enough chess, you build up patterns in your brain. The subconscious mind stores all those patterns, so you know what's going on. For example, a basketball player uses pattern recognition. There's no way a basketball player has time to figure out consciously the distance to the basket if they turn and jump, where everybody else is. All of that is already built in through thousands and thousands of hours of playing, right? Sure. You use pattern recognition to a certain extent when you're cooking, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't have to think, it's just naturally there for me because I've done it for so long.
You have built up, but your patterns are sophisticated because they include smell, sight, sound, or whatever it is, right? So you kind of know you have this pattern built up of what it's like to cook a good meal, what doesn't work, right? Sure. It's not. You don't really logically work out what combination of things. It's already there. It's your intuition that makes you a great cook, chef.
Well. It's like anything really. I mean, if you're dedicated to something, and what is it? 10,000 hours makes an expert of doing something. And I've done this for 37 years now. And there's a lot better chefs than I am out there. But it is having an understanding of what's going on around you, and like you say, using all of your senses and everything that you come into contact with, and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in practice. Doing the same thing over and over, and it builds up that. So you think that's the thing that it is. It's pattern recognition on the chessboard rather than memory.
Yeah, pattern recognition, nearly everything of value in your life, right? That you can recognize patterns, right? So, for example, you probably did a better job of raising your third child than you did your first one.
Well, we've got to a point now where we let them raise themselves. Like, you know where the breakfast table is, you know where the fridge is, you know. But it is, yeah, as you say, it is a learned technique. Everything is learned, and it comes that learning. You're either learning the good habits, you're learning the bad habits. And what happens generally is that people are taking all those bad things that they've learned and integrating those rather than the positive things that will aspect them.
I don't think there's any substitute for hard work.
No, absolutely. You know, and that's the thing. People think, you know, when I talk to people about the things that I'm doing in my life, and they're like, you're crazy. You work too much. You don't sleep enough, blah, blah, blah. You know, all these kind of things. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you doing to change your life? Oh, well, nothing. I'm just going to win the lottery. And I'm like, okay, what do you think I'm doing? Yeah, doing what I'm doing is buying me the ticket. You know, have you even bought a ticket? You know, if you're going to sit there on the sidelines, how can you win the lottery if you've never bought a ticket? And all the things that I'm doing with my life, you know, all the things that I'm learning, the work that I put in, you know, the food that I'm growing, all that kind of stuff is me buying a ticket. You know, my understanding of the world is me buying a ticket. If you're not even willing to buy the ticket and do the hard work, you'll never, ever, ever achieve anything.
The best thing I ever heard about lottery is lotteries are for people who don't understand statistics.
Statistics is one of my favorite subjects. I mean, it is, you know, statistics are so easily manipulated. It is. Let me tell you this story quickly. I love this story. So there was a guy that came out of university, he had this degree, and statistical data was his thing. And he wanted to examine all the statistics of plane crashes to see if there was one thing that all those plane crashes had in common, to see if he could help stop plane crashes. Yeah. So as he went through, and he was interviewing pilots, and you know, all the things that, you know, went wrong with these aircraft, what he found was the only thing that they had in common was that at some point in their life, all the pilots had eaten carrots. So carrots cause plane crashes. Of course, it's ridiculous, but you know, the correlation doesn't equal causation, as we well know. You know, but it's hilarious when people take, you know, random statistical data and then correlate it and say, oh, well, that's what the caused it. You know, it's stupid. But that's the way our life is, you know, and it's, you know, when we're basing something on something that's completely preposterous. I mean, what's the outcome?
Would it be okay if I left you with one last story that kind of has kind of an interesting way of looking at life? Yeah,
absolutely.
So in 1983, when I was living in Ireland, I graduated from university with a degree in electronic engineering, but unemployment was 18%.
Right.
So it was almost virtually impossible to even get an interview, despite getting a job. So I ended up living at home with my parents, and I had no money. And then, you know, the months rolled by, graduated in July, and then, you know, August, September. And there I was in November, no job, it's getting wintertime. And then one morning, a letter came from the bank, said, hey, you know all that money you borrowed from us? We want it back. Yeah. And you have to come to the bank and explain how you're going to pay it back. Right? So back then, I lived about 60 miles away from the town with Limerick, where I went to university. So that morning, I had to get up, get dressed, walk 2 miles into town, and then stand on the side of the road hitching a lift. And it was raining. And it was raining very heavily. And I was standing on the side of the road for 2 hours before anybody picked me up. But the car that picked me up was a Mercedes.
Right.
So I get in, and of course I'm really wet and everything, you know. And the guy says, hey, how are you? And as we're driving along, he says, so what do you do? And I said, well, I'm unemployed. Oh, okay. So what did you do before that? So I just did a degree in electronic engineering. Really? So I'm looking for an electronic engineer. So right away I think, oh my God, here's an opportunity. I'm going to spend time with that guy. So by the end of the journey, I managed to persuade him that he should interview me. A week later, I went to his house. I had to hitch a lift to his city as well to get to that. And at the end of the day, he says, listen, I'd love to hire you, but you have to go to London and be interviewed there by 2 different companies that have this joint venture. So I go to the first company and down in LEG country out in Staines, and that went well. And then I go into central London and I meet the CEO, I meet the head of engineering, and that went well. And then I meet the CEO. And after about an hour with him, he said, look, we want to offer you the job. How much money are you looking for? How much money are you looking for? And then I thought about I thought about what engineers were earning in Ireland at that time, and I asked for double. And he said, okay.
Perfect. I love it.
And then he said, and of course, you have a company car because you have to drive to different locations. Do you have a license? I didn't have a license, right?
Right.
I said, yes, I do. I couldn't even drive. But I sure as hell wasn't going to go back and live in Ireland, with my parents, right? So I think life is, and I'm sure you have a very similar kind of stories that, as much as we'd like to think that we can control things and find our way, sometimes it's more of a case opportunities present themselves, and you need to just do your best to take the advantage of those. And to some degree, I let certain things happen and go along with things and not be trying to control everything because there's just too many factors, right? And instead, these days I just think, well, the universe has got my back. Relax. You're all right. Things will work out if I keep doing the right things, which is, the meditation, the thing, and looking after my network and doing what you do, which is make life better for the people that you run into every day. I have an expression which says that powerful people make other people feel great about themselves, not about you. So if you can go out every day and you can make people feel great about them, that makes a big difference. Yeah.
Bravo. What a way to finish, Thomas. Thank you. Look, I am so happy that you're here talking with us and sharing your insight and your understanding, your information that you have. This is the kind of thing that changes the world, and it is, as I do my sign off every day, and I'll do it today as well while you're here. But, I just want to say a massive thank you for being here, Thomas, and sharing your insight and your knowledge and your understanding of the world and all the things that you've talked about today to lift people up, because at the end of the day, if we empower each other and we're lifting each other up, then we can achieve much more than we can alone. And, I think that, the relationships that we have and the relationships that we're building and the information that we're sharing with each other is the thing that's going to change the world, and not these crazy politicians that are doing, well, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, the chat, thank you everyone for being here. It's been an awesome, nearly 2 hours that you've been here. So thank you, Thomas. Thanks for being here. Thanks for everything you've done for us today. Hopefully, sometime in the future, I'd love to have you back, and we'll continue the discussion another time. But yeah, for everyone watching, thank you for being here. As I sign off every time, I'm just so overwhelmed by how much we've gone through today and the information you've shared. So thank you, Thomas. But go out into the world and do good and be good. And you can change the world with the way you think, the way that you act, the things that you're sharing and the information that you're taking in. So do that. You can make the world a better place. But most of all, look after yourself and look after each other. And I look forward to catching up real soon. Thomas, hang around for a minute. We'll chat back at the house. Right. But thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I look forward to catching with you real soon. Ciao for now.